The more you pull away, the more they lose control. The dark secret behind a narcissist's rage. Have you ever wondered what happens inside a narcissist's mind when their control begins to slip? When the mask cracks and the illusion shatters? Psychologists describe this moment as narcissistic collapse, a psychological implosion that occurs when the narcissist's grandiose self-image collides with the undeniable truth. They are losing their grip on you. In this state, their behavior becomes erratic, vindictive, and manipulative, a desperate attempt to reassert dominance. But here's the secret few understand. If you stay grounded, calm, and emotionally detached, you can turn their chaos into your liberation. Welcome back. Whether you've been with us through every discussion or just joined today, prepare for something deeper than a list of tactics. What you're about to learn are strategies rooted in psychological insight, carefully designed to expose manipulation, reclaim emotional power, and protect your mental stability. So, grab your composure like armor, and let's uncover how to silence the noise of narcissistic control once and for all. Recognizing the battlefield, the narcissist's emotional warfare. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the foremost experts on narcissism, every interaction with a narcissist is a psychological game of control. Their goal is not resolution, but dominance. When confronted or threatened, they revert to emotional warfare, deploying gaslighting, projection, and false victimhood to distort reality and provoke a reaction. Understanding this dynamic is crucial. Narcissists thrive on your emotional energy. Every sigh, argument, or explanation becomes psychological nourishment for them. Thus, the first act of resistance is emotional neutrality. Think of your interaction as a transaction, not a relationship. Dr. George Simon calls this gray rock behavior, responding without emotional charge, much like a dull stone that offers no reaction. This frustrates the narcissist's attempts to elicit drama, confusion, or guilt. Instead of engaging in their narrative, you remain a calm observer, communicating factually and succinctly, avoiding the emotional traps. Psychologically speaking, narcissists manipulate through emotional resonance. They read microreactions, tone changes, even pauses, and weaponize them. Sarcasm, defensiveness, or anger signal that they've succeeded in drawing you into their psychological theater. As tempting as it may be to confront them with logic or passion, remember, logic doesn't work where empathy is absent. Narcissists lack what psychologists call effective empathy, the ability to feel others' emotions. They mimic it, but only to exploit it. Dr. Kristen Milstead, author of Why Can't I Just Leave, warns that every attempt to reason with a narcissist strengthens their illusion of control. The more you explain, the more material they have to twist your words into guilt, obligation, or self-doubt. Instead, respond with short, neutral statements, I understand, I'll think about it, or that doesn't work for me. Then stop. Do not elaborate. Each word beyond that becomes a door they can enter. The power of silence, your greatest psychological weapon. Silence, as counterintuitive as it feels, is not weakness. It is psychological dominance in its purest form. Dr. Harriet Breaker, who studied emotional abuse in relationships, notes that silence denies the narcissist their most vital resource, attention. They are addicted to reactions, to emotional supply, to proof that they still occupy your mental space. When you withhold all of it, you initiate what psychologists call an extinction response, the moment when a manipulator realizes their tactics no longer yield results. This silence, however, must be intentional and grounded. It's not the cold shoulder born of bitterness, but a boundary built from self-respect. After delivering a calm, factual statement like, no, that's not acceptable, take a breath. Let the silence expand. This pause is psychologically jarring to the narcissist because it mirrors their own emptiness back to them. As the quiet lingers, their desperation often grows, but so does your power. You are no longer reacting. You are observing. And that shift changes everything. Understanding the narcissist's collapse and why it's not your responsibility. When a narcissist feels control slipping away, they spiral into panic and rage. Psychologists describe this as narcissistic injury, the emotional wound inflicted when their false self-image is threatened. Their retaliation may include smear campaigns, guilt trips, or sudden love bombing. These are not signs of affection or remorse. They're survival tactics designed to reestablish dominance. Recognizing this pattern prevents re-entanglement. Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, emphasizes that trying to fix or heal a narcissist often stems from the victim's own empathy and hope, qualities the narcissist exploits. The truth is, change requires self-awareness, something narcissists inherently resist because it threatens their fragile ego. The healthiest response is emotional disengagement. You cannot save someone who weaponizes your compassion. Reclaiming power through boundaries. Saying no to a narcissist is not just a rejection, it's a declaration of autonomy. It communicates a boundary that shatters their illusion of omnipotence. When you say, "No, that's not acceptable," or "I'm not available for that," you're doing more than refusing a request. You're dismantling the psychological structure of control. Dr. Lindsay Gibson describes this as ego starvation, depriving the narcissist of validation, reaction, and emotional supply until their manipulative system begins to crumble. For you, the path to healing lies in self-trust. Each calm refusal rewires your nervous system away from fear and toward empowerment. Over time, this consistent self-assertion creates what trauma specialists call emotional homeostasis, a balanced internal state that resists chaos. The narcissist, sensing their diminishing influence, will often retreat in search of easier targets. That's not your loss, it's your freedom manifesting. As you begin to reclaim your power in interactions with narcissists, you will notice something remarkable. The calmer and more composed you remain, the more they unravel. This is not a coincidence, it is psychology at work. Dr. Ramani Durvasula notes that narcissists thrive on emotional chaos. It is their fuel, their oxygen. When you refuse to provide that energy, when you remain still in the storm, they begin to suffocate in their own emotional vacuum. Your stillness, though silent, becomes a mirror reflecting their instability, and nothing terrifies a narcissist more than seeing themselves without disguise. In these tense moments, when they confront you with lies, half-truths, or subtle provocations, psychologists emphasize the power of strategic emotional detachment. Narcissists are master emotional sculptors. They shape your reactions, twist your words, and provoke guilt or shame to reassert dominance. But by calmly challenging their irrationality, by asking them to repeat a statement, or by quietly saying, "Let's pause and think about what you just said," you interrupt their psychological script. According to Dr. George Simon, this subtle act destabilizes their illusion of control. They depend on your confusion to maintain their power. Clarity, therefore, becomes your greatest weapon. When you point out their dishonesty or contradictions without anger, you strike at their fragile ego. Narcissists equate correction with humiliation, and psychologists describe this as triggering a narcissistic injury, a psychological wound that evokes disproportionate rage and shame. They may retreat, lash out, or feign victimhood in response. Understanding this cycle prevents you from internalizing their reactions. You are not the cause of their discomfort. You are merely exposing the fractures that already existed beneath their polished facade. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to maintain your sanity and integrity in the face of emotional warfare. Dr. Craig Malkin explains that narcissists' deep insecurity drives their constant need to assert superiority. When you remain poised, your calmness silently communicates, "I see through you, but I refuse to play your game." This unnerves them more than confrontation ever could. The narcissist may accuse you of arrogance or indifference, psychological projection designed to make you doubt yourself. Recognize this tactic for what it is, an attempt to transfer their shame onto you. Instead of defending your motives, simply respond with phrases like, "That's your interpretation," or "You're entitled to your view." Then, let silence do the rest. Silence, again, is not avoidance. It is a deliberate act of self-protection. For many victims, the hardest part of dealing with narcissists is resisting the urge to justify or explain. Psychologists describe this as trauma conditioning, a pattern where victims, after enduring repeated manipulation, feel compelled to over-explain to prove their innocence or worth. This emotional reflex is precisely what the narcissist exploits. By learning to stay succinct and detached, you retrain your nervous system to remain in self-regulated calm, signaling both safety and authority. When you breathe deeply, lower your tone, and pause before responding, you are communicating psychological control, something the narcissist can neither mimic nor manipulate. When dealing with their provocations or subtle jabs, neutral curiosity can be powerful. Asking, "Are you all right?" or calmly observing, "That's interesting," forces them to confront their own emotional dissonance without giving them an emotional foothold. Dr. Wendy Behari, a therapist specializing in narcissistic personality disorder, explains that this approach works because it disarms their defensive wall. The narcissist expects emotional resistance, not calm inquiry. It reminds them subconsciously that they no longer dictate the emotional temperature of the conversation. It's important to remember that narcissists often test boundaries repeatedly. They will gauge how much disrespect or manipulation you tolerate. Psychologists call this compliance testing. Each time you maintain composure and respond with clarity rather than chaos, you condition them to realize that their old tactics no longer work. And over time, this consistent calm becomes an unbreakable barrier, a psychological fortress that protects you from being drawn back into their control. When you encounter their flying monkeys, those manipulated allies who parrot the narcissist's version of events, the same principles apply. Do not defend yourself excessively or engage in emotional persuasion. Remember, these individuals operate under the narcissist's distorted influence. A simple, "That's not my concern," or "I'd rather not discuss that," reaffirms your boundary while denying them emotional engagement. As Dr. Carol McBride writes in Will I Ever Be Free of You, disengagement is not weakness, it's the highest form of self-respect. Each time you withdraw from drama, you are choosing peace over pain, reality over illusion. When the narcissist pretends to show empathy, claiming to care, or just want what's best for you, understand this for what it is: performative empathy, a manipulative tactic designed to reestablish influence. Psychologists emphasize that genuine empathy arises from emotional attunement, not strategic timing. So when you respond with, "The decisions I make for my own well-being are independent of your influence," you are reinforcing autonomy while cutting off their supply. They may react with indignation, but remember, anger from a narcissist is often a sign of their fading control, not your failure. Ultimately, what psychologists agree on is this: consistency is your greatest defense. Boundaries lose power when enforced inconsistently. By practicing calm detachment, even in trivial interactions, you're building psychological resilience. Dr. Judith Orloff describes this as empathic armor, a state in which compassion and boundaries coexist. You no longer absorb their energy. You observe it from a distance. And in that distance, you find freedom. In the end, dealing with narcissists is not about confrontation or revenge. It's about mastery of self. Each pause, each silence, each calm boundary reaffirms that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. The narcissist will sense it. Their words may grow louder, but their power fades with every composed breath you take. This is the quiet revolution of psychological healing, the transformation from victim to sovereign.